Oh, here we are back for our beautiful book club, and I just love these conversations. So first and foremost, thank you, Nicole, for just agreeing to do this with me. It's so much fun to have deeper conversations with people that think at a different level. And I'm not saying that from a place of ego or from a place of judgment of where everybody is. But when you find somebody that's energetically and ready to lift up, like, up level and all those things, you just speak a different language. I know I've been around a few communities where you're just like, oh my goodness, this is my home. And then the next time you're like, oh, I don't know if I get them or they get me. Like they're looking at me a little bit funny. So I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, but I want to pull it back to thank you so much for saying yes to this. It's really an honor to be able to do this with you.
Oh my goodness. Well, right back at you. I feel it is such an honor. And what you are saying is so true in many ways. When we start to talk about awareness, so we start to talk about, concepts that like I only started learning, 5 or 6 years ago too. It's once you start to understand them, it is so much fun to talk to people about them because it can really change your life. And so that's why I get so excited to do this. And with you, Debbie, the conversation, I know you and I can always talk for you could talk for hours about these things, but I am just so grateful to be here with you and to discuss really important topics, I think, for women right now. The more I talk to women in my circle or, off of social media, that this is something that they desire to know more of and really want to step into their power in a more, in a more profound way. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so we do have one person for sure with us and maybe more. So hello, Liz.
Hello.
It's great to have you here. We're doing this webinar style so that we can make sure that our recording is clean and crisp and we can repurpose it. But we would love to have your engagement. And in webinar style, you actually can talk directly just to us so that other participants do not see it. So feel free to do that. And there usually is a Q&A. Yes, I see Q&A, where if you have a specific question or want us to go deeper into something, please put it into that as well. And we'll pick those out. But Nicole, I want to just circle back to why did we, I know you said we can talk for hours and we do all the time, but why did we decide that now is the time for this Think and Grow Rich book club for women? And what is it that you specifically desire because of us saying yes to this?
Well, the reason I think now is so important, I always think it now is important anytime, to be able to just jump and start going. But I have found that talking with many of my clients over time that this is something that they are desiring more in their life. They're stepping into a position that they've never been in before. They are wanting to share their voices that they like way more than they've ever done before, and really wanting to see what is possible for them. And so I think this is such a perfect book to work through to do that. It's laid out so beautifully, and it can really give you a major framework to work forward and have like a guide to really help you step into your best self and into your what is possible for you. And I love that we get to do that with people together because together we're so much more powerful. I find when our minds work together, we're like, wow, I didn't think of that before. And so it's always, to me, that's so big. And what about for you, Debbie? What has it been on your mind when I first started talking to you about this too? You were like, yes, let's do this. But what was really behind that for you?
So the same thing. I know that the world is so ready for this. 3 years ago, I did a Think and Grow Rich for Women mastermind, and we had it 15 weeks, I believe. And we had men and women there. So it was not just for women. It was for that type of thinking, that type of energy, that type of perspective. And it's been on my mind to do it again. Why I feel like now is the time, it's because it came up and I'm really conscious of when something comes up, it's like, oh yeah, it's now. And it was you. And so I really want to say that is that I really am excited to do this with you for many reasons. But one of the reasons is that you have Bob Proctor training. And I think that even though he is not mentioned in the Think and Grow Rich and he wasn't one of the originals, he studied this book and he knew it inside and out. And I love that perspective. I did not train under Bob Proctor, and it's something that I always wish that I would have jumped into when I had the opportunity. And these principles would have helped me to make that decision. Because it was a big investment, I told myself a whole bunch of lies and stories of why it wasn't for me. And I am so thrilled to know that you actually did do it. And you also had some big decisions to make along the way. And how do we now support other women that are going through these times when they feel like they're being called to step up as a leader? And sometimes that's a leader in your own family, and sometimes it's in an organization, and sometimes it's in something really big as a movement. Every one of them are equally important because we actually have to use every one of these principles in order to step into that new identity and that role and commit fully to it. So that's why I'm here. I also love that we're doing it as a book club first to see if there's enough interest for us to do an actual mastermind again, where we can take them even deeper so that now they aren't only learning it, but they're embodying it. When they're in that, that's when you've actually become a new version of yourself. But for right now, we can do this free version where we're leading people through, because what you said earlier about they're stepping into the new and they're looking for what's possible. What I find is that a lot of women they dance with it's possible, I'm possible, no, it's not possible, it's not for me. And I did it too. I'm pretty sure you've probably done it too. And so being able to lean in, tap them on the shoulder and say, it's possible. And here's the principles to help you really learn what actually is possible. Because, oh boy, get ready for a wild ride when you actually tap into this framework.
Yeah, that was so well said. You had so many things that you said there that I'd like to, come back to. Bob Proctor, I was so lucky to learn from Bob Proctor's from Proctor Gallagher. And it was I can tell you it was such a beautiful ride. And what I love is that all their mission is to help people have a better life, to really actually live into their lives, to be able to see their greatness within and know that all the power that you need is already with you. You don't have to go outside of yourself to go find it. It's here, but we just have to tap into it. And that to me was such a beautiful thing, because to know that it's within you means that you can handle almost anything that comes towards you when you discover that, right? When you discover what is possible for you. So I love that so much. And I am so grateful to do this with you, because I just know your heart and I know what your beautiful mind, and being able to leverage all the things you've already done with this book in the past, and the reception you got from other women and men in this, on how powerful it was and what it was really, leading them to. All of it is going to be so great going forward. And I think the other thing I wanted to share is you were talking about women, waffling back and forth between, is this for me? Is it not for me? Is it for me? I think, I think where money sometimes is just the word that scares people a lot. There's a lot of fear behind finances, behind money, by about going after goals. And am I in the place to do this yet? And can I do this? And is there a chance I can fail? So many things go through your mind. And I think the more that we get more knowledge, the more knowledge we get, the more powerful we become in our decision making and all of that. So to me, this is perfect timing for anyone who's deciding that in their life they are ready to see what is possible for them. That they are, and I know you and I know me, that we're just like champions of people at whatever place you are in your life, because I've been in many of them. and still working through things. And so I welcome people with open arms, because I know together when we do this work, we rise. And I would love to have us rising all together and seeing what we can do within this world. So
Wow. Wow. Well, whenever we have an opportunity to facilitate something like this, we also have an opportunity for us to grow into the next level. And I know that when I'm reading the book or listening to the book, because I have both, and I actually feel like it does two different things, reading it out loud, and then listening. There is some magic in that. And I actually even go the step deeper, is that I have notes and I highlight. So it's like, okay, now those are the things I'm embodying. So I'm a little bit of I love to go really deep and learn everything there is to learn about even a sentence. And I think that Bob Proctor was very much the same way. So if you want to just talk about that for a second.
Well, that's so funny. So, Bob Proctor, he knew that we learn by repetition, right? By doing things over and over and over again. And so he would have sometimes a paragraph that would be on his desk, like a book. So he had a book holder that would hold a book open, and he would like do the same paragraph for a month, maybe 2 months, 3 months, just the one paragraph until he understood it and knew it. And I can't remember, he used to say he had so many beautiful mentors in his life and beautiful people that he got to work with that were so impactful in this world. But they would say, you need to do it over and over until it's showing up in your life. Because if it's not showing up yet, you don't know it. And I was like, oh, because he used to always say, your life right now is a blueprint of how you have thought for a long time. And if you want something different, you have to do it different, and you have to be different, because otherwise you're going to continue to create the same things over and over again, even consciously. When you want something different, you have to start to train your mind in a new way. And that new way is also it has to be along with action. And those two things together will actually bring you into a new identity in many ways. And so, yeah, Bob loved to learn. And he was learning. I remember just a few days ago, his son was doing a beautiful masterclass, and he was talking about his dad. And he said, even just a day before he left this world, he was still opening up books and learning, because he always, this is what I love about him so much, is he never felt he knew more than anybody else. He was just on a journey of learning. And so it was like never assuming that you've got it all and it's all there. There's always a next level, and there's always a new layer. There's all of that.
Wow. And aren't we blessed to be able to have mentors that think that way? And really, I think that me and you are that way, is that we don't put ourselves up on a pedestal and say we know it all. Even if we're facilitating, a high end where somebody's paying you a high dollar, we give our all, but we're also learning at the same time. That's really what I think of as a leader. A leader is somebody that's going to facilitate a need when they still think they've got a lot to learn. Because if we wait until we are a learner, Bob Proctor would have never taught a soul, because he was a constant learner. And that's what I really want people to understand, is that at every level, there is an opportunity for you to teach and mentor and support and lead others. And the more books like this that we study, or even when we're in a mentorship program together, we have an opportunity to do it with that mentality of two minds come together. That creates the third mind. I actually believe it's way more than the third mind. I have been in groups with just two people and felt like I had brought in all the masters that are even in the universe to be in that conversation. So I think that we can really create magic when we come into a room together with intention. And that's what excites me.
Me too. I agree. And, I love that he used to say, go out and teach this, and then you will learn it. And that was one of those things, because I believe every time I share any of his work or any of my mentors' work, and I start to share it with somebody, and the feedback I get from a client, it teaches me every time. And in fact, I'm always like, yes, that's so right. It's a new perspective. It's incredible. So I really do believe that, when you are out teaching it, you start to learn it, and that's the way you start to embody it. And so there's many ways to do that, but that's one for sure, is actually sharing your knowledge, sharing it with others.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I was listening to the audiobook this morning, and
Mhm.
one of the things it talked about, and it pertains to decision, but it was the chapter before decision, which I think is organization. But what it said is that female leaders are a little different than men. So they went through the women think this way and men think this way, but then they also have this joint thing that they do equally. And this was a study that was done with different thought leaders. So it wasn't specifically from the original Think and Grow Rich, but it was when Sharon Lechter brought it in, she started doing research about what does make a good female leader and why do female leaders not get positions that men got, and how could they benefit more by bringing in that female perspective. And what I loved about it, it said, compassionate leadership is what women bring to the table. They do it in a way that they are a role model, or they bring in other role model mentors, and they know they don't need to do it all, but they do need to ignite hope and possibility and show people the way forward. So we're really that trailblazer type of mentality, and
Mhm.
men feel like they get a skill, they do it. It's like, I have that skill, I'm capable, I can do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But can you recognize in your life a time when a female acted that way? Like, follow me, I know the way, I took the course, I got the skill, but they don't actually show you the way and lead you through it. And so what it said there was, leadership today is more about being, with the action steps of the doer, but they doesn't come from the do this because I tell you to. There's a different leadership. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so good. And it's so true. There's and I'm gonna get it wrong, but Bob Proctor always talked about strategy, and he would say that, mindset is about 95% and we only need about 5% strategy. He said mindset is like so much more. And because you're given strategies, and if you're not the type of person who can implement that strategy, if it's not something that you feel confident in or going to do, it's very hard to implement. And so that's why our procrastination and lots of things come into play, because you're not the type of person to do that yet. And I think when you were talking about Debbie, and I want to, kind of come back to that compassionate way of leading, is that I think women, and I'm generalizing in many ways, but are born nurturers in so many ways, that we want to show the way and why you want to do it this way, and how can we get you to be like, you to embody it, and you to be this, because we want you to rise. Like, we don't want to be the one that's always telling you what to do. We want you to be able to do it on your own, right? And to feel that inside. And so I really think that's the one thing women, where we raise children, we do these things, we want them to fly at some point, right? And I think that's the same way in leadership, is like, let's have people fly. And I think that's what we do often without even knowing it, is wanting people to fly. And so that's one thing I think about all the time. And I think there was a part in the book, and I wish it was fresh in my mind, but I remember it being so distinct between men and women. And you were talking about how men, lots of times they're like, I've got it, let's just do it. It's, just action based. Whereas women also wanted to feel very valued in the workplace. Like, they want that mattered more to them than like climbing the ladders and doing the things. It was like, did you see me? Do you hear me? Do you understand me? And I think that's what's so important, is that, again, from that nurturing background, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you value me? Like, am I somebody important in this world? And if I am, I'm going to be with you because you see me, and I want to be part of this, and I want to be part of your mission and your vision, because you see me. And I think that's a really big differential. It's the a bit of a difference between men and women, and how we view success and moving and strategy.
Wow, I love that you connected the dots between being a mother and a nurturer, because we do. That's our whole job, is to get our kids ready to fly.
Mhm.
And we need that man woman. We're not bashing men because we need
Oh,
that man that says, get out and fly. And then we go back and we're like, be careful, that's my baby. It's not quite ready yet. Right. So
yeah,
mothers can be a little bit too nurturing at
yeah,
times, and
yeah,
dads. So we need both.
we
But
do.
we have that both inside of us. And that's why I really want to say that even though the Think and Grow Rich for Women is a woman that rewrote the book and come from the perspective of women, because there was a little bit of a gap in, like, I believe the principles, but here's how it can be heard better by a woman. And when
Hmm.
I said earlier that I had men in my mastermind that we did, but the specific man that I'm speaking about now, he definitely was in touch with his feminine side. He had been raised by a single mother. He understood the philosophy of how a woman thinks and how they nurture, and he had gone through his own dark roles and ups and downs in life. And so he was just right in there wanting to hear the perspective of the women in the group.
Hmm.
What you said earlier about what we really truly want is to be seen and valued and heard. I believe that more than anything. And that's why we're here bringing that hope. We see you. We see possibility in you. We also see that you're not quite living up to that possibility because you don't really believe it for yourself yet. And there's some old BS stories, patterns, habits that are playing out in your life that are causing some turmoil and some confusion and some chaos. So, Nicole, I know that we're 30 minutes into this, but I think what's really important is that we come with different modalities, because it isn't just this book. It's kind of like our life's experiences are all wrapped into one. What modality, what learning did we learn to come back to these key principles and help people through the path?
Yeah, yeah. Everything you were saying there it's true. There's so many things that, when you were talking about the BS stories, like how many of us have so many stories of that, are holding us back, and usually subconscious, most of the time subconscious. But when you're in these groups, often, and you and I've talked to each other, you'd be like, well, that's a story and that's a story. We need to get rid of that story. And I'm like, oh, yes, it is. But often at times we think they're real, right? They're very real in our minds because they are subconscious, and they've been actually driving the car, the ship, the boat, whatever we want to say. It's been driving it. So I think what's so amazing is that, yes, Debbie will come in with her things. I've done a lot of neuroscience training and, with hypnotherapy, and also, I like, we've talked about before, is that you take everybody's things and everybody learns a little bit differently, and certain things are going to work for a certain person, and certain people are going to fly a little bit better with this method, and certain people are going to fly a little bit more with this, and it's all perfect because we all have our different learning modalities. And Debbie, like, I mean, you've got so much behind you in so many ways of that, that you can share so much with so many people. In fact, I always think, for anybody who's watching this right now, you have to talk to Debbie and find out all the different ways that she helps people, because a lot of times I'm like, you do that too? And you do, I never even like know all the things she does. But I think our whole goal is always to get people to rise into who they want to be, and to not be saying, like we've talked about before, I guess this just isn't for me. I guess this just isn't my time. Or it's just not going to happen. And that is, to me, those few words are the saddest words in my heart, because people have gifts and we need them more in this world than ever. And when you thrive in those gifts, we make a huge difference, huge difference. And we just sometimes have to have somebody see it in us that we don't even see.
Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt, that's the reason I'm here today,
Mm.
is somebody seen something in me that I did not see. And as I grew and somebody else seen something in me and planted more seeds of hope and possibilities, it just continued to go. Yes, I had a basis. I was much like you with your dad. I had a basis of my dad that believed I could do anything that I desired to do. And so thank goodness for that, because there was a lot of BS that came in the middle of that told me I couldn't. And the world needs us more than ever. So let's talk a little bit about, we know that when we're in a beautiful state, when we can get to that place where anything is possible, we're unstoppable. It can be written in songs and poems and everything else, but really it's at the core of our belief. We know that we're unstoppable when we're in that state. We also know, or most people are aware, that if in the fear state, and that fear state can come and be sneaky. It can come in and tell you little lies, and it can tell you big fears of like, I'm going to die. But there's any time that fear, the core, is running, your confusion, your frustration, your overwhelm, any of those emotions are coming from a place of fear, we freeze. And we don't do the things that we necessarily know in our logical brain that the next step is this, but we can't actually take that next step until we get to the root of what is that fear belief? What is that thing that's telling us? And so I love that you can come in with your modalities and help people work through those conscious and subconscious beliefs, because they're driving a bus and that is not the real you. So I want everybody to just think about a time where you had a plan, you had made the decision, and you still couldn't take the actions that you knew were the right actions. Now, in my way of doing things is I get to the root of, just because you logically think that the right action is this, there's some gap in between that's stopping you from taking that action. And that may be because that isn't the right action. There was actually a different action you were meant to take. So those answers are within us, and I take people through that. But I still have to first think about, what is it that I truly desire? And then what's the negative chatter that's telling me it's not possible? Because once I identify the negative chatter, I can see where there's either an energetic block that's stopping it, or there's a belief that has literally anchored itself in your body, which is still an energetic block. We have this amazing wisdom within our body, and to keep us safe, especially for somebody that's kind of lived their life in fight or flight, there's a whole bunch of blocks in your body saying that's not safe to go there. Oh, I remember over there when that happened. So I went down a little bit of a rant there, but what I really want to circle back to is, how do you stop, once, first of all, recognize that it's fear that's actually driving the bus. It's not the hope and possibilities that's driving, it's fear. Yes. And then once you've recognized that, how do you actually step out of the fear and say, oh, you can just sit over to the side and we're going to do this differently? What would you tell your clients?
Yeah, I think about this all the time when I work with people. I think the first thing is like getting very, very clear on what you want. So really, like, that's, to me, is number one. Like, what do I want? What is, like, even 6 months down the road, where do I see my life? What is it that I really want? And so I get that first, because with that being muddy, like if it's not clear, then all the other actions won't come into place, because it's not driving to any place. We're not going any place. And so I get that being very clear, and then asking, why does it matter? Why does it matter that I get to that place? And really tapping into your why, because your why is going to carry you through all the times that things get really hard, right? When you don't want to get out of bed, when things are so uncomfortable and you're trying things you've never done before, that why will be like tugging at you to let's go forward. But the next thing that I usually do is work on those limiting beliefs. So I start to hear the stories that are coming up, like, you can't do this, you're too old, there's not enough time, you don't have enough money, you don't know the right people, whatever it is. And really starting to say to myself, is that true? Like, is that even true? Most of the time it is not true. Most of my stories that I've made up, probably 95% of the time, are not true. But in my heart, they're true at the time, right? So asking if they are actually true. And then asking myself this really good question: is that belief that I'm carrying with me right now going to get me to that end goal? Because if that belief is not going to get me there, then why am I holding on to it? Like, why am I keeping that belief? Why is that even in here? Because it is not going to get me to where I want to go. Now, that doesn't take away the fear necessarily, right? But what does start to take away the fear is, I believe so highly in affirmations, like taking the opposite to what you have just said. So like that I am, let's say I'm too old. No, I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started. Start to say these affirmations over and over again. I do it also through hypnosis tracks, which help you like get into the right brainwave state so you can accept it easier. And there's a lot of science behind that, which, the mind loves to be able to see it and know that it's safe. So, watching, it's almost like doing a playthrough that it's safe. And then having somebody with you, a coach, a mentor, somebody that's going to walk with you hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, and say, let's go, I'm with you. And I think that helps so much, because when you have somebody in your corner saying you've got this, even when you go to like do your very first post, or you're going to call somebody that you need to call, I think having that person say, I'm with you, I've got you, means the world, right? And then once you take that action, the action reaffirms your new belief. And then you're like, I can't believe I was so scared to do this for so long. And it's been like a year of me thinking of this. And then I took that one step, that one thing, and I was like, that was so easy. And I actually liked it. But I've done that so many times, right? Where I'm just like, oh my gosh, now I'm like, and now I actually want to do that thing that I was so scared of doing. Like, I like doing it all the time now. Like, it's so funny. But having all these steps kind of help you along the way makes it make sense up here and in here, right? It brings some safety to your nervous system, all of that, because it's really important. What do you think, Debbie? Like you were saying for yours.
Well, I mean, you just nailed it. So I started giggling a little bit because I have to tell you a story about somebody that I just helped prepare and facilitate a retreat. And some of you guys might know who I'm talking about, and that's okay because she's going to tell this story many times. But she's for a year and a half, right? I'm going to do. And it was time for me just to say, you know what, like maybe let's collaborate on this, right? And I knew that she had it. She did not need me at all, but she thought she needed me. So I provided the opportunity. We went through the planning. We went through what we're going to do as an outline. We did all the things, but it was all come from her. I didn't teach her anything. I just supported her so that she could really let this come through her. And then it happened. And a lot of things did not go according to plan, which for somebody that's facilitated retreats before, I knew they weren't going to. I knew that, because you can do all the planning. And this is why it's so important to take the action. Without this implementation, this lesson would have never been learned. What she learned is to trust her intuition. What she learned is that she had it. What she learned is that she had the flexibility to flow with whatever was meant to happen that day, because at the end of the day, she was just a vessel for that shift and that transformation for those women. And so she is thrilled. She cannot believe that she was scared to do this, and that she thought she had to have it all figured out, and that this was going to be too much money. Like, she could give you a whole book of the limiting beliefs that she had. And we've all been there. I'm not tattling on her. I'm using this as an example. Every one of us has overthought something. We thought about what could go wrong. We definitely, as women, thought what other people would think about us. And we then thought, was that actually good enough? And what I say is that is the shame and judgment and comparison cycle that actually pulls you down, instead of use your energy to be that human vortex that lifts yourself up and lifts everybody else up with you. Yeah. It's the hope and possibilities. But when we bring it back to the Think and Grow Rich model, it's the burning desire, the why. Right? Like, we have to have that clear in our mind, and we have to trust that we're being pulled towards something. We don't need to push. If there is a resistance, which there is, it's us. It's our fears that are the resistance. It is not that the model or the framework won't work. So
Oh,
I've
that's
gone on
so
long enough because I just think I'm so excited when we hear about
good.
the affirmations and the limiting beliefs and then the hypnosis, because those are the little things that Think and Grow Rich maybe didn't have. They
Mhm.
used a little bit. They talk about like, auto suggestions and
Auto-suggestion, yeah.
imagination, but
Mhm.
we've perfected that way bigger, way faster, way more than so. Our shifts of turning our lives around, even in the darkest moments, are so much more possible today than they were back then.
Yeah, and Debbie, what you were saying, with us wanting to jump into things and do things and waiting like a year and a half to do it, and then all the thinking and all the stuff. It was funny. I was on a walk the other day and I had like my AirPods in and then I turned them off for a bit and like I started to feel all the things that I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm feeling it because I feel it in nature a lot of times. And that was another thing, like to say, like when you're out, there's certain modalities, like I was talking about hypnosis and things, but you could go for a walk and it all just becomes so clear, right? Like all the things just all of a sudden come so clear for you. And so the other day I was doing that and I was just like, coming back to who I've always been in this clarity. And so there's many different modalities to come to where you need to be and what you need to do. But I would say it's like having people in your corner. It's having a clear vision. It is having people or having like just jumping and actually just really to me stepping into self-love. I think self-love will always be the foundation to everything because no matter what, when you want to go and do something, doesn't matter if everybody doesn't agree with you. It doesn't matter if they don't all see your vision. It doesn't matter that they don't get you when you're on social media. Like it doesn't matter all of those things because if you have this, the right people are going to find you. The right people will always find you that need you. And so if you're not living into who you really need to be and what you need to do, you're never really calling in the right people anyways. You're never going to have that longevity. You're never going to have those things. So that's where I believe like self-love is like that foundation. And I think that's where we work on that too, right? Working on that belief in who you are and what you are meant to do in this world. And yeah, I just went off on a little bit of a tangent, but I was just thinking
No,
about it. I was
I
thinking
hear
about
you.
that.
Because there's so much we could talk about. You circled back to self-love and then selfish. And that I circled earlier in the conversation because you brought it up and you talked about money. And we have these goals, but then we think, well, there's no way that I can do this thing because it's going to cost this much money. And am I worthy to spend that much? And I think as mothers, maybe it's just me, but we have a tendency to be the last on the list. And so if money's needed in someplace else, the kids need it, the household needs it, the grocery store needs it, it's always on the list first. So when we have the ability to really receive a next skill of leadership, mentorship, step into our own power, it feels a little selfish at the time, but it's actually the highest version of self-love, self-care, because when we take care of ourselves, and I just got chills because the whole world shifts. The whole world changes when we are our best self. We're a better mother, we're a better wife, we're a better business partner, we're higher thinkers, we're community builders, we're all of the things that the world is looking for. So
Yeah.
it's like we're watering the root, we're watering the thing that can help everything else, and it's not selfish in any way. And if anybody ever wants to have that conversation in a deeper way, reach out to me, because I was really messed up in my belief about selfish and self-love. I did not have it. I could not figure it out. I grew up in a way that I felt that I had justified that some people's actions were because they were selfish. So
Mm.
the last thing I wanted to do was be selfish. And so I was really beating myself up all the time, and self-love was not part of my regime until I realized, and once you get it, you get it. So I'm here to support anybody that's still struggling with that, because I can guarantee you that fear and not enoughness is running that dialogue in your head. And
Yeah.
let's blast that out of there.
Yeah, Debbie, I've had a lot of that too, like even investing in myself. And I will tell you for sure, as a single mom, I've been thinking all the time about, well, we need to pay for this and we need this and all of those things, and taking the back seat. And what I continue to recognize and try to nurture in my own self is that if I'm wanting to be the best mom, the best business operator, like be the best friend, the daughter, all of those things, I have to be full or I can't. Like if I'm always running without gas, then I can't even help the people that I want to. But I think as women, and I'm speaking from my perspective on this, is I feel lots of times because we're such nurturers, like we have it's almost built in our DNA to give. It is often hard to receive. I find it like, I love giving. I love giving. In fact, it lights me up beyond lighting up, right? But sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like, like I don't want to take away too much from somebody else, or I don't want to, or if I receive, like do I deserve all of that? Like it's so many stories that start to happen inside. And those are stories that I think if we were to sit down with men and women and have this conversation, they'd be very different answers.
They'd be like, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense, because it doesn't. It is in our DNA.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things that I did for myself, and I now do for my clients, is learning that the give and take energy, the give and receive energy, it's got to be equal. And I used to play the game that I can give and give and give, and then I can receive. But lots of times people didn't play that game back. They did, and then there was regret, and there was, judgment, and there was some things. And so now with open hands, I receive and give at the same time. It is a cycle of energy that continues. And if I'm not filling my own cup up by receiving, there is something blocked in me. It isn't them.
Yeah.
Because really what's happening is when you open up a channel to be able to receive more and you ask, they're like, heck yes, I wanted to pay you. I wanted to offer you this, but you keep wanting to give me things. And I was feeling guilty and I didn't want to receive anymore. So thank you for offering this for money so I can actually pay you back. It wasn't a block in them. It was in me. So now I see it as that gift. If I'm lighting up somebody's life, I see my hand go out and gift to them, and then I see their hand out and give to me. And if I can't fully receive that, embody that, and bless it and be grateful for it, then I go back to my self-mastery, because there's something still within me that's running my wonky, shifty boat.
Oh, it's so good. The way you explained that was so beautiful, that the balance between giving and receiving have to be equal, right? In many ways. Like, I mean, at times you may end up giving a little bit more, doing the things, but you have to be open to receiving. And I think that's the other thing you said in there, I believe you were meaning is that that it's when they get to give you, it's a gift to them too, right? So it's like when we block it, we're often saying, oh, no, 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 oh, no, no, no. But we know how good it feels to give, and yet they can't do that. And it's also, I think about it also in the terms of what we value. Lots of times is money in our society too. So when you invest in something and you spend the money, often you're going to even put more into it because you've spent the money too, right? And so when you want people to actually get results, it's the way we value money is that if you spend it, you're like have more ownership of it and you're going to do more. And so it's an interesting thing when we're not asking sometimes for contribution within. It's actually probably withholding somebody's results that they could maybe even get a little bit faster because they believe in what they've done. They've invested in themselves. They've invested in it.
It's so true. It's so true. Nicole, earlier you were talking about a 4-step process that you use in helping people make decisions. Do you want to run through that right now?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to pull it because it was Bob Proctor's and I have it right here. And And I wish I had it in my head memorized today, but I don't have it in my head memorized today.
Okay, we got a lot of things in our brains right now.
No, but what it is so he had a really beautiful, because he said the most successful people in life make decisions really quick and change very slow. And so he was always talked about that you make these decisions quick and you change slow. But he said there's times in your life where you have some big decisions to make, and people have sometimes waffle back and forth, and it's lots of times it's due to self-worth and whether you can do it and all those kind of things. But he had 4 things that really helped you get, like, if you have a decision in your mind, 4 things that can really help you. So one is, the very first question to ask yourself, and he said it's the most important question, is, do I want to be, do, or have this? Do I want to be, do, or have this? So do I even want it? Because sometimes it's not even it's not something that we even want, right? We maybe somebody else is wanting it for us. And so we're making this decision, and that's probably why it doesn't even feel that good, because it's not even ours, but we're making it for somebody else. The next question, or the next thing he has on there, will being, doing, or having this move me in the direction of my goal? So will it move me in the direction of my goal? Because if it's not going to, then why am I even signing up for this? Why am I taking this? Why am I investing in this? Whatever it is, if it's not moving me where I want to go, why am I doing it? The next one he says is being, doing, or having this in harmony with God's laws or the laws of the universe. So he is, and this is one thing with Bob Proctor, is he ran his life, once he understood the laws, he ran by the laws. And he said it's universal. These laws are always happening, but once you learn them and live by them, you live a much better life. So he was always asking, is it within there? Is it serving people? Is it, increasing their life? Is it all the different things, he would ask. And then the last one, he said, will being, doing, or having this violate the rights of others? And violate the rights of others. And I thought, that is so good, because he was talking about business deals and different things. And if it's going to be doing something that's not legal, or it's going to be, putting somebody in a bad position, then we know that that's not a great decision to make. And so it was just a 4-step process. But he said, if the answer to the first 2 questions is yes, and the answer to the last question is no, he said, make the decision and get moving. And, get moving. I can see him saying it right now, get moving. What are you waiting for? Life is waiting for you. So, but I thought it was a beautiful process for us when we are really struggling. If we're really struggling on something, this helps put it in perspective and helps us move a little quicker.
Wow. So this is really reminds me how powerful the Think and Grow Rich book is, because even though this is Bob's perspective on it, this is really the whole thing of the Think and Grow Rich. It is about principles. It is about laws. It is about this stuff works, follow the formula, follow the framework, because it is that simple. It's us as humans with our life's experiences and our conditioning that have made it complicated. And so for me, that goes back to the basis of what I believe is, and I'm not perfect in it all the time, but really there's 2 things. There's fear or there's love. And so if you're moving towards love, it will always fight fear and blast it. But if you're going to feed the fear bus, you are not going to be amplified and fully living your life to the potential of love, unconditional love, both receiving and giving. It's just not going to be there. Something is always going to be in the middle, in the resistance. So for you to live in that state of pure love, and it's not always easy, but it is possible. And I know that each and every one of us has witnessed somebody in our life do that. Even through life's chaos, they always had this deep sense of unconditional love for themselves and for others and for God. And that's really my desire, to be able to live more in that space.
That is so beautiful. And, I think you and I could probably both agree that anytime that we've been making decisions from a place of fear, that often in my life it has not turned out. It's been from a place of lack, or and the reason we make decisions sometimes in those places is because we want to change. We want something. We're feeling the need for it. But when we do it from a place of fear instead of a place of love or relaxation, or like where we can actually rest our nervous system, we will jump at things based on our old paradigms, based on, who we used to be versus who we want to be. And so I think that's, when we're coming from fear, it's because we're basing it on our paradigms. We're basing it on what our beliefs of that ones that often don't serve us. And so it's going to really make a big, big difference in our decision in the end.
Wow. I think we'll wrap that up right there in a bow, because that's really it. It's that mastery of really deciding and discerning what is the truth, what is a reaction, and is it coming from fear and not enoughness and ego and all of those things that can kind of like sneak in, but it's fear. And it's fear of not being enough, not being loved, being kicked out of the tribe, like all of those things. And in reality, we don't have to earn our spot here. It's there for us to just really receive and embody. And when we can get to that place, we just know the truth. Everything else just flows. It's easy. And, right now we're using the Think and Grow Rich book as that way to teach people that it can be that easy, or help you remember that it can be that easy and be supportive. But the truth is, this is just one of the principles of the books that are out there that are amazing. And I hope we have time to go through each one of them. But this one, it's super exciting to kind of flip the original Think and Grow Rich and then come from the perspective of as well a woman, and then go, oh, that's why I've struggled. That's why that just didn't quite land for me. And now I understand from seeing it from a different perspective again, that just opened up a whole new channel, really. It's energy, it's excitement, it's passion, it's purpose, it's your deeper why comes through when you see it from a different perspective and lean into it.
Yeah, Debbie, I love that. And I just wanted to finish it off. I love exactly what you were saying. And I think like what I would say to anybody that's watching this right now is that I hope they get really excited about knowing that everything is inside of you. Like everything you need is inside of you. And once we open it up and you tap into it and you start to see what is possible, you will be making decisions that align with your life. You will be like, I've got this. I trust myself on this. I trust that I can. And even if it doesn't go exactly the way that I want it to go, I also trust that I will be fine. I will be okay because I've got me. I've got me. And when you start to learn that, when you start to feel so powerful from the inside and know that you've got this, everything in your life starts to be just great, right? Just like you wake up being not as much in fear and more in love.
Well said. Okay, we will see everybody next week. These will be here as replays, so please encourage other people to watch them, and first and foremost, let us know what resonated and landed and you'd love to hear more from, because this is what feeds us to be able to have these conversations. And then again, as I said, we're going to see how many people are interested in actually doing a mastermind together. And that would be our greatest gift if we could do that for you.
It would. And thank you so much for everybody that is watching. And like Debbie just said, if you want to take this and actually put it into action and actually start to see results and start to do these things, that's our intention, to bring this to the foreground and have us do it together. And so if it's getting you excited about like what is possible for you, then please let us know, because we really are open to hearing what works for you and what you are excited about.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.